What's going on, everyone? Welcome into a live Cleveland Browns report. I know I've had some, we'll say, delay of games the last couple of weeks. So this time I decided, you know what? Me and Trace are ready to roll here. Let's just get the show underway, even if it's a few minutes early. So welcome on into a live Cleveland Browns report. Plenty to talk about going into NFL Week 16, which I say with a smile because the Browns are 9-5. But every single week that passes, a little bit of me dies knowing we are getting very close to football ending. That's sad. I hate that. There is nothing better than the start of football season, and there is nothing worse than the end of football season. So let's enjoy all the football we have over the next couple of weeks. I think what I'm going to do is, because I do every Browns watch party every Sunday, I go back and not watch every other game from start to finish, but I watch some highlights for the close games. I'm trying to get caught up. I might save a game that I just missed entirely, and in like March, April, or May, just watch it start to finish. You know what I mean? Like Commanders, Patriots. That was like week 7, week 8. I kind of remember who won, but I don't really remember what happened. So I might do that this year. I don't know. Now, before we get into today's live show, I do want the audience to build up and whatnot. So, should Kevin Stefanski win Coach of the Year? Get in the chat right now. Kind of boost the almighty YouTube algorithm out for us for a moment. Should Stefanski win Coach of the Year? Yes or no? I'm giving shout-outs. Mark Nolan says yes. Wolfstan says yes. Will Brennan, number 1 fan, says yes. Cool Guy says yes. Charles Williams says yes. Ty Man the Buckeye says yes. I've got Lil Beam in the chat, as always, saying yes. Jamin Wilkinson is saying yes. Right before we started, I was actually watching an Instagram reel of the Browns fan UK who was showing us his Browns backers bar like 2 hours outside of London. Looked like an awesome place to watch some Browns football. Sean Cornelius says yes. So let me know. Should Stefanski win Coach of the Year? His team has 9 wins. 9-5, 4 different starting quarterbacks. There are a lot of teams out there that are struggling with just having 2 quarterbacks. Stefanski's like, watch this. Double it, and we're still going to win 9 games with 3 games remaining. In my eyes, he has done the best job coaching this Cleveland Browns team that anyone could do. I don't know if there's another coach out there that if you picked them up and dropped them in Cleveland week 1, they would have this team at 9-5 after everything this team has endured. I think Kevin Stefanski is without a doubt the Coach of the Year. Now, while you guys are chiming in for me down in the chat right now, I do want to tell everyone about our sponsor for today's live show, which is Prize Picks. If you're not familiar with Prize Picks, I'll get you guys up to speed. The way Prize Picks works is you pick more or less on projected stats for 2 to 6 players. And if you correctly predict all of those stat projections, you can win up to 25 times your money. So let me give you an example. For Sunday, these are my selections. I'm going with the more on Josh Allen's passing yards. Prize Picks is also doing something really cool this holiday season. They are doing demons and goblins. Demons make it a little bit tougher on those projected stats, but bigger payout. Goblins make it much easier to get to, but not as lucrative of a payout. So I like the Goblin on Josh Allen's passing yards and Gabriel Davis's receiving yards against an awful Chargers team. I also like the more on Raheem Mostert's rushing yards against the Cowboys. James Cook just ran all over Dallas. And then how about the less on Tony Pollard? 53.5 rushing yards. This is just my silent treatment to Tony Pollard for sucking on my fantasy team all year. No one cares about your fantasy team. So go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link is in the chat. It's in the description. It's in the comments of today's video. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. We have over 100 people watching right now. We've got a lot to talk about. We got some roster moves being made. We've got some playoffs to talk about. And then a mailbag at the end of the show. But shout out your city for me in the chat. I want to know where you are tuning in from right now. If you have watched our live weekly shows before, you know I'm a sucker for shout out your city. I just love to see how far and wide this fan base stretches. So let me know where you're watching from. Landon is in Cambridge, Ohio. Sean's in Canton, Ohio. Go Browns in Oklahoma City. Ty Man's in the Buckeye State. Charles is in Cleveland. I got Mark in Oak Hill. Jamin's in Nashville. Will's in Berea. Ken G, what's going on? All the way from Connecticut. We have Will Brennan, like I said, in headquarters, Berea, Ohio. Just a chip and a wedge away from Andrew Barry's office. Rampage is in Cleveland. Max is in Youngstown. Brunswick. Akron, Cool Guys in Maryland. I got Liberty in Meridian, Idaho. I got Brunswick from Dennis. Let me know where you're watching from. Shout out your city in the chat. Remember to like the video too. I know I'm being very needy at the moment, but we have over 100 people watching, 22 likes. It's not a great ratio. If you like the video, it tells YouTube to send this to more Browns fans. We get a bigger channel. I get more studio space. You get more content. It's all like recycling. It's just liking the video, right? If you don't like the video, every time you don't like the video, one of your straws kills a turtle. There it is. Said it out loud. I never quite understood how my straw gets like perfectly lodged into a turtle, but I do see the videos and they're pretty gross. Because you killed the turtle because you didn't like the video. Savage SpongeBob is in New Orleans. What's up, Dennis Schultz? Jake's in Sacramento. Mr. Clutch is in Cleveland Heights. I've got Indiana from Railroad Joe. Forrest is in Ohio as well, along with Jolly JC. Jacob Kistner in the house. What's going on, Jacob? Toledo, Ohio. Tim Brown is in Danville, Virginia. Dennis Schultz, 7 more games, wins you a Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, it does. It does indeed. So predict the score for me for this upcoming week against the Texans. Browns versus Texans. I'm a big believer when it comes to predicting who's going to win games and to who needs to win more, right? Which team's a little bit hungrier and which team, and this might sound a little dumb, but hear me out because I think it's got some truth to it, has some really tough games coming up. And so they are more desperate for a win now because they got some tougher games coming up later on. The Browns and Texans both come off miraculous comeback victories, which means one of these two teams is due for, I would say both of these two teams are kind of due for a come down to earth kind of game, right? But they're both playing each other. So someone's going to follow up a miraculous comeback victory with another win. Why not us? Why not us, baby? Why not us? Will says 33-10 Brownies. Scott Zappa's in the house. Good to see you, Scott. 28-13 Browns. Mark says 33-30 Brownies. The Rhino, 35-28. Williams watching from Orlando, Florida. Cool Guy, 24-19. Tim Green, 24-17 Browns. 10-5, baby. Ooh, 10-5. You can taste it.
The Browns having 10 wins is awesome.
It's good for football. Good for football. Okay. I mean, here's the crazy thing, too, is if you think that Joe Flacco is going to start crashing down to earth, all right, maybe he's not going to throw for 370 yards. But if there's one thing he is good at, it's the playoffs. That's his calling card.
January Joe,
like, you look at his last 4 years in Baltimore, they made the playoffs one time. It's because they just struggled getting to the playoffs. He's got no problem in the playoffs. We are one win away from essentially locking up a playoff spot. Joshua Miller, $5 super chat. Let's go, Josh. Way to get the show started, man. Joe Flacco is tied with Tom Brady for most road wins in the playoffs. I know it's been rough on the road, but have faith in Flacco getting a road win. This is kind of a unique stat because it looks really impressive, and it is impressive, but I think it also just goes to show Tom Brady just never played on the road in the postseason. Like, he always just got the 1 seed. It always just went through New England. I bet Tom Brady played. Ty Man, can you fact check me? I'm gonna guess I'm gonna guess Tom Brady played 60 postseason games. How many playoff games did Tom Brady play? I'm guessing 60, maybe even like 70. Who wants to be my assistant for a moment? Tom Brady, 48. 48. I'm guessing of those 48, 40 were at home. They just always had the 1 seed. And if they didn't, they probably lost a little bit early in the postseason. So, it is super cool, though, Josh. I'm not taking it away from it. It just really cool how Joe Flacco's great in the playoffs, and Tom Brady just always plays at home in the postseason. It's like how Wayne Gretzky and his brother have the most points of any single brother combination in NHL history, and Wayne Gretzky's brother has like 1 point. It's just the great one did all the work for that tandem. All right, here we go. Have faith in Flacco. I have faith in Flacco. I don't have a ton of faith in this Browns defense on the road. It has been Jekyll and Hyde anytime they leave Cleveland. So ask your questions, though. Share your thoughts. Get your hot takes on screen. Hashtag Browns. I also want to share that, like, the mailbag, yes, it's a mailbag, so that inherently asks for questions. But if you got takes you want to share, like you got an opinion that you kind of want to have on screen, because I feel like there's nothing worse than when you have a really good take and then it materializes and it's true and you don't have any evidence. Use us as your evidence. Use us by going to hashtag Browns, getting a hot take in there, and then you can always show your friends a screenshot of this video in a couple of weeks saying, see, I told you so-and-so was going to win a playoff game. Or you can super chat like Joshua Miller just did. If you super chat, we guarantee it gets on screen during the mailbag. And so Josh will talk about that in more detail later on. Coming up on today's show, though, latest news and rumors, playoff path and odds, and then that mailbag that I was just talking about. So a pretty jam-packed show for us on today's edition of a live Cleveland Browns report. J. Keith Petey, did this past Sunday change your opinion on Darnell Mooney at all? I'm a bigger, we'll say, Darnell Mooney fan than maybe your average NFL fan is. He had over 1,000 yards in a really bad Bears offense 2 seasons ago. So I think Darnell Mooney, who's going to be a free agent this year, could be someone Cleveland looks to add some speed because they were looking for that out of Marquise Goodwin, and they've gotten 1 reception pretty much all season long this past game. So I think Darnell Mooney, his play this year has probably dropped what his price tag's going to be. So he's definitely a very affordable and prime free agent target. So, Jake, I know he dropped the Hail Mary. Good for us, bad for him. But I wouldn't be blown away if that's someone Andrew Berry targets in March. Mr. Trace, are we ready to jump into the show? Okay, let's do this thing. Okay, so really, yeah, okay, that works. Remember to use hashtag Browns in the chat. Otherwise, the software cannot pull the question. Here we go. Let's jump into the latest news and rumors right now. What's going on, guys? Welcome on into a Cleveland Browns report. Matthew Peterson here, breaking down some roster moves during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, self-plug. But Chris Williams was added to the Browns practice squad, defensive tackle UDFA out of Wagner. He initially signed with the Colts back in 2020, appeared in 13 games for Indianapolis. He was on the Chiefs practice squad for much of this year, and now he's on the Browns practice squad, which initially when I first saw this, it was like, oh no, who's hurt? Because anytime they add someone, it means someone is hurt at that position. So fingers crossed, no one is hurt at the defensive line position after losing Mo Hurst for the rest of the year. Siaka Ika played a good amount of snaps on Sunday. Didn't see anything too eye-popping out of him, but Chris Williams joining Tommy Togiai on the defensive line practice squad. So fingers crossed, this is just some practice squad signing that's going to go under the radar and we'll forget all about it in a couple weeks, and it's not about someone getting hurt and the Browns need more help on the D-line. Now, before we get on to the rest of today's show, though, we crossed 30,000 subscribers on Sunday. Not going to lie, it was a pretty wholesome moment for me. It's been incredible to see this channel grow, but we're not done growing. So help us continue to grow. And in return, I give shout-outs. So we're going to shout out a couple of our recent subscribers at the end of the show. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. First story on the docket. Should the Browns extend Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah right now? I'm going to give it 2 Bernie heads. Do I want to see JOK extended from a personal level? Yeah, I love JOK as a player. I'd love to see him be a Cleveland Brown for a long time. Do I actually believe JOK is going to get extended today, tomorrow, the day after that? No. So that's why I'm kind of in the middle between what I would do versus what I think is going to happen. But JOK has 1 more year left on his rookie contract, 2024, but he's having a career year under Jim Schwartz. I mean, 1 more game, and he will have played the most amount of games in a single NFL season. He's got career highs in tackles, tackles for loss, sacks, interceptions for now. I think that Justin Fields, end of the first half pick, might get taken away, but we'll count it. And then QB hits to go along with it. PFF also loves what we have seen out of number 6 this year. He is ranked 25th out of 80 qualifying linebackers. So we're talking about a top 25, top 30 type linebacker in our game at the moment. There's no doubt in my mind that JOK is on track for an extension. I don't think we're going to see it happen before week 1 of 2024. 1, he's got 1 more year left on his rookie contract. 2, the Browns just extended Grant Delpit. 3, the Browns have 1 more year of JOK with a rookie contract. He's been great this year. There was some questions about his availability after the 2 first seasons of his NFL career. So I don't think Andrew Berry is going to be too big of a prisoner of the moment that goes, JOK is awesome this year, extend him. You can't extend every single guy that's got a really good season, right? That's why he's a GM and we're just fans and blog boys on the internet and whatnot. So I think Andrew Berry is going to be a little bit more patient with this one, and maybe JOK gets a Delpit type extension next year around this time. But like I said, he's on track for an extension. He's got career highs in all of these stats: 84 tackles this year, 18 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, one of which came on Sunday against Justin Fields, 5 QB hits, 1 forced fumble. I mean, you compare what JOK is doing this year compared to his first 2 seasons in the league. I mean, he's not playing any more snaps than he was last year. I thought it was a much higher snap percentage this year. Nope, 75%, just like 2022. But what's the difference? He's got more than double tackles for loss. He's got 3.5 sacks. He has really found a role in this Jim Schwartz defense. He finally, because he's a bit of a, lighter, quicker dude. He's not some big, stocky, off-ball linebacker. He doesn't have offensive linemen just shoving him around because he's got a good D-line in front of him. So I think JOK is definitely on track to get a contract extension. Now, when does that happen? Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen this season, maybe next season. What could that look like? Well, here are the top 10 highest paid linebackers. I don't think he's going to get top 10 money. Now, maybe if he really balls out to start next season, sort of like the way Grant Delpit did this year. But even Grant Delpit did not get top 10 safety money on average. So I don't think it's very likely that we're going to see JOK get, record-changing numbers at the inside linebacker position. Maybe he finds a 3-year, $25 million contract extension, $28 million contract extension, something in that neighborhood. But let me know, would you extend JOK? If you were in charge, would you just get it done right now thinking, hey, the guy's awesome, I've seen everything I need to see? Or would you be a little bit more patient going, there's 1 more year on his rookie deal, let's get a bigger body of work here before we jump the gun on a contract extension? Second segment now. Joe Flacco, was he almost poached? 4 Bernie heads on the keyword being almost, right? Evidently, there were attempts made to steal Joe from Cleveland, but it was never going to happen, so do not worry. Now, I'll expand on this story in just a moment, but our sponsor, Prize Picks, they've got an awesome deal/promo they are doing this holiday season. I'm really excited to share with you guys. Now, first, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy sports service where all you do is pick more or less on projected stats. And if you correctly predict 2 to 6 player stat projections, well, you can win up to 25 times your money. So take these Sunday slate of games here. I'm taking the more on Josh Allen and Gabriel Davis's yards, but they're also just a bit lower because they are goblin yards. Okay, so there's demons and goblins this holiday season. Goblins are lower, demons are higher. Demons, of course, harder to get, but a bigger payout. Goblins, easier to get, but of a lower payout. So I'm going to take the easy route, take the more on the Allen and Davis Goblin yardage total. I like the more on Raheem Mostert, 57.5 rushing yards straight up. And then the less on Tony Pollard's rushing yards, 53.5 against the Miami Dolphins run defense. Now, if you like my selections, feel free to ride with me over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. That link is in the comments and description of today's video, Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Peter King recently wrote in an article that Joe Flacco's agent, Joe Linta, told me Sunday night he had 2 or 3 teams inquire about signing Flacco last Monday when the Browns put him on the practice squad for a day or two for roster management purposes. Joe didn't want to hear. This is what Joe Linta, the agent for Flacco, said. He absolutely wanted to stay in Cleveland. He loves the team. He really gets along well with the coach. So, were there attempts to maybe have Joe Flacco poached? I suppose. But Joe Flacco was never going anywhere. This is not one of those moments where they almost got him. No, if a team really made an offer, the Browns would have just elevated him to the active roster, and it never was going to happen. So don't think that the Browns almost lost Joe Flacco. Now, which teams could this have been? Just spitballing here. The Jets, right? If this happened 2 weeks ago, the Jets were not quickly dead yet. I guess the Giants, maybe the Vikings. I mean, a couple of these teams without their starting quarterback that are in the hunt. I don't think the Bengals, the Ravens, or the Steelers would do it to just ruin the Browns. I mean, again, if you sign Joe Flacco, you got to pay Joe Flacco, and you got to open up a roster spot. So are they going to cut someone just to stick it to the Browns? I don't think so. So ultimately, Flacco is never going anywhere. Also, I don't think Flacco is dying to go anywhere when you look at it from a monetary standpoint. Like, Joe Flacco signed a pretty nice contract with the Browns with loads of incentives, right? It's worth up to over $4 million. Each win gets him $75,000. I know Joe Flacco's already a millionaire, but just think, Darnell Mooney dropping that Hail Mary. Yep, Joe Flacco, who's got multiple kids, tuition paid for in-state. Wild card win, by the way, $250,000. I mean, we're talking about out-of-state tuition now, private school. Divisional round win. Both his kids get to go to private school. $500,000, okay? AFC title. Now we're talking second home. Super Bowl, $2 million. Now they are naming dorms after him at Delaware. Ultimately, though, I keep saying this, and I'm not going to stop. I just a complete 180 for me on Joe Flacco. I used to be the guy that, got underneath Ravens fans' skin saying Joe Flacco's not elite. He's washed up. What he did in Denver and New York and whatnot showed that he was never that great of a quarterback, and I couldn't have been more wrong. I have loved what I've seen out of Joe Flacco on the field. He seems like an awesome dude. Everyone's rallying around him. It's truly an incredible story. Flacco fever's not going anywhere. I could not have been more wrong about a player before. I love what Joe Flacco has done for this team. Third segment now, Cleveland. They're going to win the AFC North. Just one Bernie head. I wish I could go all the way to 4 Bernie heads, but the moment I just give 4 Bernie heads to anything positive about the Browns, the moment I lose all credibility. But I'm not going to stop looking at the AFC playoff picture. I'm not going to stop doing work so I can look at the playoff machine because that's all I do right now. The Browns at 9-5 have a full lead in the wild card spot. They are 2 games back from the Baltimore Ravens. So let's talk about the AFC North race here. Look at the Browns and Ravens remaining schedule. Cleveland goes to Houston, an 8-6 ball club this Sunday. The Ravens, Christmas night at San Francisco. Let's say the Browns win and the Ravens lose. All right, Cleveland now goes into the final 2 weeks 1 game back. They can't afford to lose a game because if the Ravens win just 1 game, they get themselves to 12 wins. Going to have the tiebreaker over the Browns, I believe. If the Ravens win 2 games, it's done. So the Browns need to win out, and they need some help from Baltimore, who could lose potentially to the Dolphins after playing a tough game in San Francisco. The Browns could beat the Jets. So what if it did come down to that last game, though? Right? What if the Browns do go into the last week knowing if we win and Baltimore loses due to AFC North record and AFC conference record and all those tiebreakers, 12-5 goes to us, and all we got to do is take care of business in Cincinnati, but the Ravens got the shitty Steelers at home. If the Ravens drop their next 2 and the Browns win their next 2 and it comes down to week 18, it doesn't look great for Cleveland just on going to Cincinnati and winning versus Pittsburgh, beating Baltimore. But then I'm reminded of Lamar against the Steelers all time. maybe his toughest opponent. Like, Lamar's great against the NFC because they don't see Lamar very often. However, the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bengals, they see Lamar quite often. And Lamar's numbers against the Pittsburgh Steelers speak for themselves. And then you also factor this in. The Steelers against the Ravens in Week 18. Where have we seen this before? Oh, I remember. In 2021, when the Ravens had an opportunity to potentially go to the playoffs. And what do? They choked it away. They needed some help from the outside, but they went into this game knowing we got to win and we have a chance. And the Steelers won, and the Steelers ended up getting the right to be the 7th seed to get spanked by the Kansas City Chiefs in Ben Roethlisberger's last playoff game. Now, it's not the first time we've seen the Ravens have an opportunity to a win and in and maybe a win and get some help in the final week of the season. Let's go back to the Week 17, 2017 game between Andy Dalton, who had nothing to play for with the Cincinnati Bengals, and a Joe Flacco-led Baltimore Ravens team that had everything to play for in the final week of the season. What happened? With under a minute to go, down by 4 points, you had Andy Dalton connect with Tyler Boyd for a 45-plus yard touchdown reception. It actually sent Buffalo to the playoffs. Remember, that's when the Bills sent all those wings over to Cincinnati for beating the Ravens and ending their playoff drought. So if there is a franchise to choke it away in the final week of the season, after playing a really good Niners team, the best team in the NFL, and a really good Dolphins team the 2 prior weeks, maybe losing those 2 games, it would be the Ravens. Now, before we get on to the rest of our show, I do want to ask this question, not about the AFC North, but how about the other side of the coin here? Who's going to win the NFC this year? Like, I think we spend so much time focusing on our conference, of course, but just for, I don't know, shits and giggles. Who do you think is going to win the NFC this year? I think it's the 49ers by a mile. I got the 49ers probably winning the Super Bowl at this point. But let me know who you think is going to win the NFC down below. Before we get on out of here, we had an incredible, remarkable, marvelous Week 15 watch party against the Chicago Bears. So it's time to give out some awards. The MVP is the Green family. Tim Green the first, Tim Green the second, Tim Green the third, Kelly Green, the entire Green family. You guys continue to show up and put up legendary numbers. We're talking about putting your team on your back in the fantasy football playoffs. That's the Green family right there. I cannot do what I do on Sundays without you guys. The All-Pro nod, it goes to Brad, number 1 Browns fan. Brad says he's the number 1 Browns fan, and he plays like it in the chat on Sundays. I mean, Brad does not come in here just to pick up a first down or 2. Brad's out here like David Njoku on the final drive, not to go in for a field goal, but to set up another great score, all right? The Pro Bowl nod, I just want to give some love to a cool guy called Zone, and then the same goes for Time Man the Buckeye, who gets the game ball. These guys in the chat making sure everyone's on time, making sure everyone's lined up, right? We have seen a lot of guys line up offsides offensively. If they had Cool Guy and Time Man on their team, none of that would happen. There'd be no full starts. There'd be no silly penalties. Everyone would be prepared. Everyone would be locked in if they had Cool Guy and Time Man on their squad. We are not able to be as successful as we are without those two. And then finally, the sleeper, Christopher Burr, who, Christopher Burr, everyone, has been hanging out in the grass, just minding his own business, moving his way up the depth chart. And when he finally got an opportunity with some meaningful snaps, gosh, he made the most of it. I mean, Christopher Burr is someone that everyone has to study the tape on because he is going to be a problem for future opponents in the coming weeks. Now, before we sign off and get on out of here, I did say at the start of the show, I want to highlight some recent subscribers. So Sam Pagan, Jarvis Lacey, John Wade, Brandon Evans, Evan Dietrichson. Thank you guys, and thank you to everyone else who has recently subscribed or has been a longtime subscriber for helping us reach 30,000 subscribers. That's going to do it for us on this edition of the Cleveland Browns Report. If you have not subscribed, please go ahead and do so. We're going to keep you guys in the loop all season long with more Browns news and rumors updates. Who's going to win the NFC? I think it's got to be the Niners. The thing with the Niners is, I said this in the beginning of the year, they're really good. They're the best roster in football. If you really think about it, they have Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Fred Warner. They have so many guys. But they're very thin at depth. If they lose anyone, they're in trouble.
Yeah, their starters are amazing.
And they haven't really lost anyone yet. Like, they've kind of kept the whole band intact pretty much.
Yeah.
They lost their starting safety, Hufanga, but outside of that, they have really been able to stay healthy.
Yeah.
Miami Max in the house. He says the Lions sleepers. Lions are definitely sleepers. I don't think. Here's my fear if I'm a Lions fan. You're going to get the 3 seed and play the 6 seed Matthew Stafford-led LA Rams. Stafford returns to Detroit for the first time. Playoff game. Crushes the Lions fans. I mean, if I told Lions fans 5 years ago Stafford would win a playoff game in Detroit for you in 2023, you're over the moon happy. But you didn't know that he was going to be on the other team. Okay. Lil Beam asking some questions. Let's see. Lions, Browns, Super Bowl, let's go. That's what America wants. We need a Lions, Browns Super Bowl. Maybe not. Like, I don't think it'll happen maybe this year. But what about next year? Like, what if the Lions take this year and they're like, all right, we got a taste of success. We learned how to play with leads, something we haven't done very often. We got this now. And what if the Browns are like, hey, we've established a winning culture. We got some great pieces here. We get Watson and Chubb back healthy, and we're ready to roll. That'd be the best Super Bowl we've ever seen. We're going to have a mailbag in just a few minutes or so. But before we get to that mailbag, we need some more questions. Hashtag Browns in the chat, or you can super chat. We had a couple super chats fly in, actually, I believe. So let's recap some of the super chats. But if you want to guarantee your question on screen, super chat like Justin Pritchard did. Justin, appreciate your super chat. Thank you very much, my man. Hope you're doing well. Go Brownies, Justin. And then did we get another one? Justin sent 2. I love it. Justin Pritchard, there he is, having the time of his life, Sergio Dip style. Ty Man the Buckeye says Browns Chiefs Super Bowl. Ty Man, I'm going to need you to think about that one for a little bit longer. Not very feasible for the AFC reasoning. Okay. Are we ready to jump into segment number 2? All right, here we go. Let's talk about playoffs, baby. Hello, my name is Matthew Peterson, and I am an addict. I am addicted to playoff machines. I spend all day cranking out different possibilities for the Browns to go all the way from the 1 seed to even potentially the 7 seed. So I figured I would share my addiction with you guys today and have a nice, AA meeting, or I guess a playoff addicts meeting, and run through some playoff scenarios, paths, and odds. Now, let's just set the table for a moment by looking at the current AFC playoff picture. We're filming today's show, by the way, during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern. So depending on when you're watching this, of course, is subject to change with more games, like the NFC side of things, which I think this is going to go out after Thursday Night Football. I think the Rams are going to win, which would put them at the 6th spot in the wild card race. But if the Saints win, they would jump all the way to that 6th spot with an 8-win record. But let's get into this by talking about the 3 elements of today's show, right? The playoff path to a wild card spot. Let's just talk about getting into the dance, right? You just want a seat at the table, all right? Let's look at that. The bare minimum. Remaining schedule. You've got the Texans on the road. You've got the Jets at home. You got the Bengals on the road. So 2 out of your last 3 games on the road, where the Browns have not fared very well, let's be honest. But there is a path for the Browns to win on Sunday and clinch a playoff spot. In fact, there are actually 8 paths, but they're all very confusing. So I just picked which one looked the most likely to me, if you will. So here is the most likely scenario, in my opinion, for the Browns to clinch in Week 16. They have to beat the Texans, and then they need some help. Again, this is just clinching this week. Pittsburgh loses to Cincinnati. That doesn't seem unrealistic. Denver loses to New England. Not too likely. The Patriots have been awful, but it's Belichick. Can't ever quite rule them out. They got the Jags losing at Tampa Bay. The Jags are on a 3-game losing streak. The Bucs are hot. I can get behind that. And then finally, Indianapolis wins at Atlanta. The Falcons just lost to the Panthers. The Colts are 8-6. So all those things by themselves don't sound outlandish. It's when they all also have to happen in the same week that it becomes very unlikely. So I don't think the Browns are going to clinch a playoff spot on Sunday. It's not completely in their control, but I do think they are going to clinch a playoff spot in the next 2 weeks. In fact, if you look at the last 3 games here, if the Browns just win 2 games, all right, they win all 3, of course they've clinched. But let's just say they win 2 games. 99% chance they clinch. It kind of depends on which 2 games they win, but if they win 2 games, they get to 11 wins, they're in. The playoff simulator says 99%. It's basically 100. Now, what you're probably wondering is, what if they just win 1 game, right? What if they just beat the Jets at home and drop those 2 road games to 2 above 500 teams, which isn't out of the question. If they win just 1 out of the 3 remaining games, 95 to 99% chance they clinch. You get to 10 wins in a 7-team playoff, you're going to make the postseason. The only exception was in the first year of the 7-team playoff, the Indianapolis Colts were the 7th seed, and they had, I believe, 11 wins before they went off to play in Buffalo. So I'm pretty confident that 1 win, you're going to be in. Finally, if you don't win a single game, if the Browns, God forbid, were to lose out, they're not dead. They'd go to 9-8, and it says 16% chance of making the postseason. So 1 win, get to 10 wins, it's pretty much locked up here. Now, before we get on to the rest of the playoff path and whatnot, what's your Browns record prediction over the next 3 weeks here? At Houston, home against the Jets, at Cincinnati. Let me know what your record prediction is down below in the comment section. I think the Browns are going to go 2-1 in that stretch. My record prediction is 2-1. You can attribute a loss to either Cincinnati or Houston, but go 1-1 on the road and beat the Jets at home on Thursday Night Football. And I think the Browns with 2-1, well, I know the Browns with 2-1 are in at that point. Now, if you're wondering, what about the AFC North title? Well, we're going to talk about that next on today's show. But our sponsor today is Game Time. You guys should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. If you're trying to catch an upcoming Browns game, or if you want to see a concert or another sporting event in your area, Game Time is the place to visit first. What I love about Game Time specifically is the ability to get last-minute tickets for the lowest price. There's nothing better than a spur-of-the-moment boys trip to a game, and with Game Time, you can do that without breaking the bank. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but once again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and redeem the code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Second element of the playoff path. What about winning the division, right? For the first time in AFC North history, the Browns could win the division here. Well, they have to take down the Baltimore Ravens, right? That is the competition here. The Bengals are out of it. The Steelers are out of it. It's a 2-horse race. And here's the remaining schedule for the Browns and the Ravens. And we talked about this on a previous episode here on the channel. But if you just missed it, let me catch you up to speed. The Browns would have to win out, right? If the Ravens win 2 games, they get to 13 wins. The Browns can't catch up. If the Ravens win 1 game, they get to 12 wins. The Browns win out, they get to 12 wins. There is a way where the Browns only win 2 games and the Ravens don't win another game, but I don't think the Ravens are losing out. So let's assume at minimum the Ravens go 2-1, right? 1-2, excuse me. Get themselves to 12-5, and the Browns finish 12-5. The tiebreaker would go to Cleveland in that case, but I don't think it's out of bounds to say the Ravens go 1-2. They're going to play at the 49ers on Christmas night. That's not going to be easy. They're going to play home against the Dolphins. That's not a gimme game, especially after last year's matchup between those 2 sides. But then the Steelers game, which looks a lot easier compared to the previous 2 games. But then you remember Lamar against the Steelers. In fact, Lamar against the AFC North, it's not as successful as Lamar against other opponents, like in the NFC, right? Lamar is 2-4 against the Steelers all time in his Ravens career. And then you also add in this. The Ravens, in win-and-in scenarios in the final week of the season, choke artist. Week 18, 2021. First time we had a Week 18 in the NFL. The Ravens win and get some help, are in. But they couldn't even get their end of the bargain done you had Ben Roethlisberger take down Baltimore in overtime so that the Steelers could go get just verbally and physically assaulted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the first round. But that's not the first time the Ravens had a win and in potential scenario. Go back in time, 2017. Joe Flacco was the quarterback. And what did the Ravens do against a Bengals team that had nothing to play for? They gave up a 40-plus yard touchdown bomb to Tyler Boyd with less than a minute to go to lose the game and send Buffalo to the playoffs. So the Ravens have been here before, and they're not very good at it in the final week of the season. My prediction is I think the Ravens are going to win the AFC North. Whether they win 2 games or 3 games and just get it done on their own, or even if they just win 1 game. You need the Ravens to win 1 game. You need the Browns to win all 3 games. Asking for both these things to happen, it just seems like too big of a long shot when I factor in. It's not like the Ravens are a fraudulent 11-win team. Like they're playing maybe their best ball the entire year right now. So for them to go 1-2 down the stretch, I just don't think that's going to happen. Final element, though, for all you sickos that want the 1 seed, let's talk about it. It's not impossible, but you need a lot of help, okay? Here is the easiest and what I believe most digestible path for the Browns to the 1 seed. Number 1, win out, finish 12-5, okay? Number 2, the Chiefs need to lose 1 game. If the Chiefs and Browns finish with the same record, the Chiefs will have the tiebreaker based on conference wins. We need the Chiefs to lose at least 1 game because they too have 9 wins right now so that they don't finish with more than 11. Step 3, the Ravens lose 2 games. Can't let the Ravens also finish with 12, 13 wins and have a tiebreaker over Cleveland potentially. It gets a bit hairy with the Ravens, but have them lose 2 games to the 49ers and the Dolphins or the Steelers. Step 4 and Step 5. The Dolphins need to lose 1 game because they're at 10 wins right now. And if the Dolphins get to 12 wins, in a lot of scenarios, they're going to have the tiebreaker over Cleveland. But I also need the Dolphins to lose to Baltimore or Buffalo. They need an extra AFC loss. Really, they can't have 2 more AFC wins because then they're going to have more AFC wins than the Browns, and that's going to serve as a tiebreaker over Cleveland. So, need the Dolphins to lose a game. We also can't have the Dolphins lose to the Cowboys and then beat the Ravens and then beat the Buffalo Bills to end the season. So, they can beat the Cowboys, lose to the Ravens, or lose to the Bills, but we can't have them lose to the Cowboys and then win the last 2 games because then they get the tiebreaker over Cleveland. Still a lot of football left, 3 weeks, so there's still a lot of hurdles to get there. But for now, this is the Browns' most digestible path to the 1 seed. Before we sign off and let you guys get on out of here, what's your Super Bowl prediction? I know we're very late for them, but hey, it's kind of fun. So, Super Bowl predictions? We're talking Soupies? I think the 49ers are going to the Super Bowl. And my preseason prediction was the Dolphins go to the Super Bowl. I mean, of course, I'm going to pull for the Browns, no doubt about it, but if everyone just said their favorite team goes to the Super Bowl, well, sure, they'd be a pretty normal fan, but I feel like then I wouldn't have any credibility when it comes to predicting stuff. So I think we might see Dolphins and 49ers in the Super Bowl. Who says no? Ken G, $2 super chat. Why, you ask? Curious, potentially? Just because. Just because. Ken G, appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We have any other super chats? No, that looks like... Okay. Hashtag Browns or super chat for that mailbag. Let's see what everyone's saying here. Ray Bidding, yeah, playing Case Keenum will not be a layup. So CJ Stroud, still in concussion protocol. I feel like every team has assumed playing the Browns with Joe Flacco would be easier. They would be wrong. So let's not make the same mistake the last couple of teams have made, like the Jags, for example. Let's put some respect on Case Keenum's name. Although I'd rather play Case Keenum than CJ Stroud. Cool guy. Dolphins aren't good. They are frauds. I get it. But they're so fast. And if they can get some home playoff games, they might just run past everyone. And that might be enough.
Can they go win in the cold, though?
That's the question. Here's what's interesting. Can we actually throw the AFC playoff picture up for a moment? So there's a very peculiar path that doesn't seem like such a big long shot. So the Dolphins right now are the 2 seed at 10-4. What's crazy is that a team that's in the hunt could very well steal the AFC East title. So the Bills at 8-6. The Bills have an easy game against the Chargers this week. Okay? The Dolphins play the Cowboys and the Ravens the next 2 weeks. Let's say Miami goes 1-1 against Dallas and Baltimore. That gets them to 11 wins. Meanwhile, the Bills, they've got easy weeks coming up here. They got the Chargers coming up, and then after that, I think they have they don't have the Jets. After the Chargers this week, they have the Patriots. So if the Bills beat the Chargers and the Patriots and the Dolphins lose one of their next 2 games, week 18 between Buffalo and Miami, with Miami having a 1-game lead, that will actually be for the division because the Bills beat the Dolphins the first time. So if they beat them a second time, they have the head-to-head. They would have the same record as Miami, and they would jump all the way to the top of the division. So if the Dolphins lose one of their next 2 games and the Bills go 2-0, we might have Sunday Night Football Week 18 for the AFC East. I kind of thought there was a chance the Browns and the Bengals could play on Sunday Night Football Week 18 because both teams will be either fighting for a playoff spot potentially or just playoff seeding in general with 2 above 500 records. You don't get that very often in Week 18 going head-to-head, but if it's Miami-Buffalo, that'll be must-see TV Week 18. Joshua Miller with a $2 Super Chat. Let's go, Josh. Joshua Miller, what do you have to say, sir? Thinking about a Flacco jersey just because. Ken G, just because.
If you have a Browns Flacco jersey, that would be the ultimate Darty jersey.
No one's got a more unique jersey closet than Joshua Miller. From Cade York to Martin Emerson to Joe Flacco.
What a closet.
Can't beat it. You cannot beat it. So, Josh, maybe that's going to be underneath their Christmas tree. Talk to Santa. But a Joe Flacco number 15 jersey, like in 4 or 5 years from now, is going to look super fucking cool in the Muni lot. All right, we have a mailbag to get to next on the show. So get those questions in. You can super chat as well, like Josh and Ken and Justin Pritchard have. If you super chat, we guarantee it goes on screen. 200 people watching right now, 83 likes. We're not going to start the mailbag until we get to 90 likes. So make sure to hit the thumbs up button if you have not already. Tim Green, I don't think Cincy is going to make it. Tim, here's my issue with that. I don't think a lot of the teams currently in the playoff picture are going to make it. I don't think the Bengals are. I don't think the Colts are. I don't think the Vikings are. But if they aren't, who is? Like, the teams below them are technically worse. Like, the Vikings are not a playoff team, but neither are the Packers. Neither really are the Falcons or the Saints. Sorry, Trace. Like, did the Saints play the... Who won? Vikings Saints.
Vikings Saints was a big one. Vikings won that one. Had the Saints won that, they would have a 95% chance to make the playoffs right now.
Yeah. That's a game I have to rewatch in May.
I will not be rewatching that one.
Oh, that was like week 2 or week 3. Jameis came in.
No, that was week 13.
Oh.
We played him in week 4 last year.
Oh, I don't know what I'm thinking of then.
That was in week 13, 14.
Didn't the Saints have a huge lead? And the Vikings came back a little bit?
We did that against the Packers in week 2.
I guess that's what I'm
Or week
thinking
3,
of.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
we did that at Green Bay versus Jordan Love, 17-point comeback.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready to jump into the mailbag, Mr. Trace? All right, here we go, guys. Let's jump into the mailbag. One last call. You can super chat, skip the line, or hashtag Browns in the chat section. Mailbag time here on the Cleveland Browns Report. Matthew Peterson answering questions from our live show, which airs Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern as Dane Cook, pay-per-view, 20 minutes. Let's go. When will the Browns extend Kevin Stefanski? Listen, when it comes to the extend Kevin Stefanski bit, I think Kevin Stefanski is doing an incredible job. I am all for extending Kevin Stefanski. I don't think it happens mid-season because Kevin Stefanski, I don't believe, is going to be a free agent after this year. So it's not like Grant Delpit, who might have gotten more money from elsewhere. You're not at risk of losing Stefanski if you don't extend him now. So let the rest of the season play out. coaches can be a little bit prisoner of the moment when it comes to your attitude towards them. So let's let the last 3 games and then the playoffs play out and then go extend him once you know how the rest of the year ends. But I don't want to extend him right now, have the Browns, God forbid, lose their next 3 games, miss the playoffs, something tragic like that, and we're all sitting here going, I can't believe we just cursed and just jinxed the shit out of this. But Kevin Stefanski, I'm not going to argue for extending because I think it speaks for himself. The guy has, a second 9-win season, 9+ win season. No one's done that since the 80s with Schottenheimer. It's been decades. Kevin Stefanski with 4 different starting quarterbacks, so many injuries, 2 UDFA safeties starting, 2 4th and 5th string tackles starting, and he's not phased. All he does is just win this year. He just game plans the hell out of the other opponent, and he puts his team in a position to be successful. So I'm all for extending Kevin Stefanski. Also, you don't need to rush to pay him because his salary does not count against the salary cap. So if they extend him, it doesn't work out. Well, if you fire him, sure you got to pay him out, but it's not my money. It's Jimmy's money and Dee's money. And unless they're afraid to fire him prematurely because they don't want to pay him out, then ultimately his salary does not impact us whatsoever. But let me know if you think the Browns should extend Kevin Stefanski. I'm not going to spend the rest of this video arguing with the people that still think Stefanski's a bad coach. Just admit it. You'd rather the Browns fail so you can be right rather than the Browns and Stefanski be successful and you're wrong about your opinion. That's all I have to say. Joshua Miller. Joe Flacco is tied with Tom Brady for most road wins in the playoffs. I know it's been rough on the road, but have faith in Flacco getting a road win. My first thought from this is Tom Brady did not play a lot of road games. It's just a testament to how great he was in New England to always have the playoffs go through Foxborough. But Joe Flacco, if people think he's about to come crashing down to earth, knock on wood that he's not, but he's also about to hit his apex, which is playoff football, when he plays his best ball of his NFL career. So, yes, the Browns' defense has been Jekyll and Hyde at home compared to on the road, but hopefully Flacco can be the difference maker if the Browns' defense slacks a little bit on the road. Joshua Miller with another super chat, thinking about a Flacco jersey just because. That's actually a pretty good segue. Name the most random Browns jersey you have in your closet, because having a Joe Flacco jersey in the Muni lot in a couple of years, I want a picture with that guy. Cool guy called Zone. Browns win the rest of their games to go 12-5, and the Ravens lose the rest to go 11-6, and we get the AFC North title and maybe the 1 seed. It is possible. I think the Ravens are playing just too good a football to lose 3 in a row. They've got the Niners, the Dolphins, and the Steelers. I could see them maybe going 1-2 in that stretch. But if they go 1-2, the Browns have to win out. And for the Ravens to go 1-2 and the Browns to go 3-0 with 2 road games there, I hate to be the rain cloud. I don't think that's uber realistic. I'm just being honest with you guys. I want it to happen. I do. I just don't actually believe deep down that's going to happen. Raging Bull, bring Trace in for the playoffs. Raging Bull is producer Trace's burner, who is here today. So, yeah, if we get some playoff football here, we'll try and get Trace behind the 1s and 2s. Lil Beam, how much would it cost to bring back Zadarius Smith for 2024? Let me look at what Jadeveon Clowney signed for the Ravens, because my guess is that's going to be about what it costs to get Zadarius Smith back, because those 2 players are having similar, Zadarius Smith this year is better than what Clowney was last year, and Jadeveon Clowney signed a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. Both similar in age, so similar injury-ish history. I don't think it'll cost you all that much to get Zadarius Smith back, and I would actually like to have Zadarius Smith come back. I know the sacks haven't been there this year, but sacks are probably a stat that fans just look at too much when deciding if a player has been good or bad. Quarterback pressures are really important as well, right? QB pressures is kind of like the OPS of baseball. Sure, people look for batting average, they look for sacks, but if Zadarius Smith is back there forcing incomplete passes or forcing bad decisions from the quarterback because he's getting pressured, well, 2nd and 10, 3rd and 10, those are just as good to me as sometimes being a sack as well. Tim Green, next one up. Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. How about number 15 for Comeback Player of the Year? Man, Joe Flacco for Comeback Player of the Year. I just fear that he hasn't played enough to get attention for that, but maybe if he came in earlier this year, I could see that happening. I do think Kevin Stefanski should and maybe will get Coach of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year, it's probably going to be Damar Hamlin. It's just going to be too political not to give it to him. But like if we're keeping it real, he hasn't actually played a whole lot of football this year. He's been a healthy scratch. So I don't think that Damar Hamlin is, I'll say the unpopular thing, uber deserving for Comeback Player of the Year for his performance on the field. For his incredible comeback story, yes, of course. But we're talking about actual, like, on the field bounce back to the way you played last year. No, I don't think Damar would check that box for me. So we'll see what it comes down to. My money is probably on Damar, but I think there are some other players who really struggled last year on the field and have been really good this year, kind of like Geno Smith with the Seahawks last year. Before we get on to the rest of our show, I do want to highlight our terrific sponsor, which is Game Time. You guys should not have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. So let's say you want to catch an upcoming Browns game, say the Browns-Jets game, right? There's nothing better than when all the guys are together and all the girls and all that, and they're planning a trip, and then they look at ticket prices and they're like, well, that's a downer because that's going to cost me an arm and a leg. Well, Game Time is the place to find last-minute seats. Download the Game Time app and then redeem the code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off. I look at it as Game Time is taking care of your parking, taking care of your run to the concession stand with that $20 off. Terms apply. Create an account. Redeem code BROWNSCHAT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Miami Mac, next one on the show. Do you think we can win out and the Ravens drop an AFC game or two so we can win the division? Again, we can look at the remaining schedule for Browns-Ravens. Cleveland has to win out to get to 12 wins. If the Ravens win 2 games, they get to 13, it's done. If the Ravens win no games, the Browns will leapfrog them. If the Ravens lose 2 games and we have a 2-way tie at 12-5, it might come down to where the Ravens lost when it comes to AFC, but I think that there is a chance. I ultimately don't believe that both things can happen or will happen. I believe the Browns can win out. I'm not sure if the Browns are going to win out in the same universe that the Ravens drop 2 of their next 3. Tough games against the 49ers and the Dolphins. They very well could lose one of those games and then lose to the Steelers. Agreed. I'm not saying it's impossible that the Ravens lose out. It's just one of those things where when you get the and in there and not the or, it makes it feel like it's just too big of a reach. Captain Presto, what's going on, my man? Do you think Joe Flacco returns to the Browns next year, or does he retire after a nice playoff run? Flacco has said he wants to continue playing. I'm not quite sure if he'll come back to the Browns to back up Deshaun Watson. I'll say that again, to back up Deshaun Watson. If Joe Flacco wins the Super Bowl, the Browns are going to have the best problem in the world, and that is who to start at quarterback after winning a Super Bowl, kind of like Ohio State nearly 10 years ago. But for now, let's just say, for argument's sake, that Joe Flacco does not win the Super Bowl for the Browns. I think he'll want to take this 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 game body of evidence here and use it for tape to get a starting gig elsewhere next year and not come back to be the backup in Cleveland. Plus, I think the Browns are going to want to bring back DTR as the backup because it's not like Dorian Thompson-Robinson was abysmal when he started. He got better by the start. He got injured. Flacco got hot, and they kept it the hot hand. But I think Flacco will play football in 2024. Not super confident that's going to be in Cleveland, though. Skadoosh. Will Chubb be the same after recovering from his injury? I'm never going to bet against Batman. The guy's a physical freak. He just deadlifts and squats 1,000 pounds like it's nothing. But at his age, with the amount of injuries he sustained and it being the same knee, it does make me queasy. I was thinking about this yesterday. Fingers crossed that he does come back and he plays very well on the last year of his contract, and maybe we even re-sign him or something. But if I'm keeping it a buck with you, I don't want to bet against Nick Chubb, but I don't know if we're going to get that guy who averaged over 5 yards a pop. Lil Bean, what's going on, dude? I definitely think the 49ers will go to the Super Bowl, but it could be any AFC team, including Cleveland. I know that I'm right now being not the fun guy in the locker room saying the Browns are going to the Super Bowl. It's a lock. Believe me. I have been riding the Browns hype train for a long time now. I do try to be honest when it comes to future predictions, because if I just say the Browns are going to win every single week and they're going to the Super Bowl every single year, sure, that's fun in the moment, but after a while it gets a little bit old, and ultimately I sort of lose my trust with the audience that I know what I'm talking about. So I do believe that the AFC, let's just look at the AFC playoff picture for a moment, Trace, to wrap up today's show. The 49ers, I think, are going to win the NFC. They are the best team in the NFC, but the Ravens have shown weaknesses this year. The Dolphins have struggled against above 500 opponents. The Chiefs are stumbling. The Jags are stumbling. They're injured. The Browns are hot, but can they power through all these injuries? Not going to happen with the Bengals or the Colts. Like, you can make legit cases for more than 2 or 3 of these AFC opponents. So, yes, the Browns definitely could ride this high all the way to Las Vegas. Should the Browns extend Kevin Stefanski? What do you guys say? What's going on, Sam? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Should the Browns extend Kevin Stefanski? I just got a compliment, but I'm not quite sure what the compliment was for. He said, Sam Brown just popped in here. He was like, I caught the last 45 seconds. That was beautiful. It was awesome. I was like, my AFC playoff picture breakdown? He's a big OU guy, and I didn't talk about OU. He's a big Baker bro. Oh, he needs volleyball knee pads when you talk about Baker. I don't know when I talked about that. Got Sam. Okay. Time Man says yes. Looking for the Ravens' year-end stumble. I thought the stumble might have been in Jacksonville. It wasn't in Jacksonville. So, maybe that's not happening this year. I don't know, Joe. I don't know. Do you think Hopkins should win MVP? A kicker has won MVP award before. It's not going to happen ever again, though. So, unfortunately, no. Do I think Dustin? I think Tyreek Hill or Christian McCaffrey should win MVP. That is my honest opinion. Trizzy Trace wants some screen time. Raging Bull, his burner. Who's Raging Bull?
I don't know who Raging Bull is, but Raging Bull, I can tell you what. I would love to be there for Browns watch parties. I think they'd be a lot of fun.
Okay. Go on, sorry?
Yeah, no, that's all. I think it would be a lot of fun.
No, so speaking of watch parties, let's kind of wrap up the live show with this. Let's look at the AFC and NFC playoff pictures right now.
Cool.
And I'm going to give you guys my predictions as to what the matchups are going to be for that wild card weekend.
I like it.
Let's look at it. Ultimately, the Ravens at 11-3, I think, are going to get the bye. I think they'll get to 12 wins. They'll have some tiebreakers. I think the Ravens get the bye. I know that's not what people want to hear, but my honest opinion. So then, we have quite a showdown. The 2, the 3, and the 4. Who's going to win the AFC South? Whoever that is going to get the 4 seed. I think I don't know. Trevor Lawrence is in concussion protocol. CJ Stroud's in concussion protocol. Is Gardner Minshew about to win the division? Maybe. The Colts play the Texans week 18. That could be for the division. And if it's Colts-Texans week 18 to win the AFC South, it is going to be the Texans.
I agree. I like the Texans in that one.
So Texans get the 4 seed. Chiefs are going to win out. They'll get the 2 seed. The 3 seed is either Miami or Buffalo. That one also could be coming down to week 18 if Miami loses one of their next 2 games and Buffalo wins their next 2. I think the Dolphins are ultimately going to prevail, though. I got the Dolphins getting the 3 seed. So I got Ravens 1, Chiefs 2, Dolphins 3, Texans 4. I think the Browns are going to get to 10 or 11 wins. They'll get the 5 seed. I think the 6 seed will be the Colts. And then I've got Jacksonville, who I've lost 3 in a row. They do not look like a playoff team. And I've got no Pittsburgh, no Denver. Denver's got a very easy schedule. Denver could win their next 3. They've got New England, they've got Chargers and Raiders, but I don't think that Denver's going to go 3-0 in that stretch. I think the Jags. Man, do I really have 3 AFC South teams making it? Oh, no, I forgot about the Bills. Okay. I got to reorchestrate a little bit here. Reshuffle. All right. Browns get the 5 seed. Bills get the Bengals got the tiebreaker over the Bills. No. Bills get 6. They win 2 out of the next 3. Bengals win 1 out of the next 3. Bengals get 7 seed. Okay. So, with that being said, the 2 versus 7 matchup is going to be Kansas City, Cincinnati. Chiefs win. The 3 versus 6 is Miami, Buffalo in Miami. Miami wins. Browns, Texans, 4-5. Browns win. So then the 1 seed Ravens come to play. Both the wild card team lost. So it's going to be Ravens, Browns, Joe Flacco in Baltimore. And then I've got Chiefs, Dolphins in the other side.
Football needs Joe Flacco to return to Baltimore.
Yep.
They need it so bad.
And then I'll have the Browns take down the Ravens in Baltimore. The Dolphins take down the Chiefs. And then I got the Dolphins beating the Browns to go to the Super Bowl. And everyone hates me right now in the chat. And then the NFC. The Niners are going to get the 1 seed. I think the Eagles, with their last 3 games coming against the Giants twice and the Cardinals once, they're going to get the 2 seed over the Cowboys. Okay? So Niners 1, Eagles 2. 3 will be Detroit. 4, I think the Bucs are going to win the NFC South. 5 will be Dallas. 6, I think the Rams are going to be the best of this 7-7 bunch. So the Rams will get to 6. And then the 7 spot will be, I think, Seattle. That win against Philly was really something. So with that being said, I've got number 7, Seattle, playing number 2, Philly. Eagles win that rematch in Philadelphia. 6, I have the Rams. Rams, Lions, Matthew Stafford, homecoming. I got the Rams winning that one. And then I've got Cowboys, Bucks for a third straight year. Cowboys. Yeah. So with that being said, we move on to the next round. It'll be Rams at the 6th seed playing in San Francisco. And I'll take the Niners in that one. And then I've got the Cowboys taking on the Detroit Lions for another NFC playoff showdown between those 2 clubs. And I'll take the Cowboys in that one. And it'll be Cowboys 49ers. 49ers win. 49ers beat the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. There it is. Thoughts? People are really pissed probably about the AFC title game. We'll take it. Hey, AFC title game this year, Super Bowl next year. Baby steps. All right. That's going to do it for us on our live show today. For everyone that tunes in every single Tuesday, I really can't thank you guys enough. It's always great to have the same faces and names in the live chat. So I appreciate you taking time out of your Tuesday to come hang out with me for a live show. Kimberly Hurst is here. We got Ty Man, U-Haul. You want a fun U-Haul story for me? Yes. All right, little fun Petey U-Haul stories. When I moved to Dallas, I got a U-Haul, and I went to Ace Hardware. I bought a lock for the U-Haul, put all my stuff in the U-Haul, and then I closed it, and I locked it. And the moment I locked it, I realized I made a grave mistake. No, the key was not in there. I closed the U-Haul truck down, normal, and then when we do the lock, it's at the very bottom of the shed, right? At the very bottom of the garage door, right? I put the lock in, and the lock was so big that it went up against the foot ledge to step into the U-Haul, like it sat on it. And the place you put your key in was at the bottom of the lock. So there was actually no room to get the key in because the bottom of the lock was sitting on the foot ledge to step into the U-Haul. So it was impossible. So I realized I made this mistake the moment I locked it. My sister flew out to do this U-Haul drive with me. My girlfriend was in her car, but also doing the drive, so the 3 of us. And it wasn't until we pulled into Dallas, about 30 minutes outside of town, I let the whole group know about this mistake. Because I didn't want them to be mad at me for the last 2.5 days driving. And it was at that point I said, we have a problem, by the way. So we called the U-Haul place, let them know the issue. They're like, don't worry, we got bolt cutters. Okay, awesome. We show up, they go, bad news. The bolt cutters guy is not here. Oh no. They call him. He comes in on his off day. Dude something out of a movie. Came in, got the bolt cutters, tried to break it, couldn't really get a good angle, just fucking started going ham on like a baseball bat. Just popped right off after like 5 swings. Yeah. And then I had the funniest joke of my entire life, maybe. Breaks, falls off, we open the thing, I pick up the lock, I look at him, and I go, dude, you broke my lock. He died laughing. I knew that one either wouldn't land or would land, so well. All right. That's going to be it. We will sign off. We will see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and go Brownies.